is from a very high level. And then the crux of the presentation is going into what are some of the ideas that developers can utilize in order to build applications using SSV technology. So I'm just going to hop right into it. Awesome. So as everyone here knows by now, you wouldn't be at this conference if you didn't, you know, the biggest infrastructure shift to have happened in many, many years is blockchain technology. In my opinion, it was actually Ethereum being the preeminent smart contract platform. And Ethereum is obviously going through a very significant shift. It was supposed to be June. Now it's looking like fall, but sometime likely this year to proof of stake away from proof of work. Already, there's been 9.5 million Ether staked. There's a lot of people who believe that just like there's a risk-free rate set by central banks around the world, that with Ethereum becoming the preeminent network to support global economic activity, that staking on Ethereum, specifically that rate that you earn, will become the risk-free rate of the decentralized web. And then the ETH at stake post-merge is actually expected to double, especially as we get closer to the unlock period where ETH is naturally liquid versus as it is today, where it is naturally not, and it is locked until an undefined preset of time. So validators, as I'm sure you know, are charged with securing the Ethereum protocol, and there's a lot of issues with the current infrastructure, specifically between switching between client and client redundancy due to slashing and downtime risks. So one of the problems that I hear often, let's say there are various operators who are running servers in specific countries and something happens within that specific country. Their servers are relatively concentrated within an area for DevOps cost reduction purposes. That can cause a sustained slashing event for all the stakers that are using that specific operator. And so this L0 concept, which is what really SSV is building on using, is used to decentralize and ensure stakeholders are secure and to protect the overall health of the Ethereum network. So allowing for further distribution of effectively the operator ecosystem, which ensures greater decentralization of staking on Ethereum. So there's a lot of, once again, this is just going over some of the concentration risks that exist today within the staking ecosystem, especially with the Prism client accounting for over 60% of L0 client deployments. There's not too many large staking services that are attracting significant amounts of ETH, and oftentimes validator keys are custodied online and are concentrated in the hands of third parties. There's a lot of issues with this. It's a honeypot for exploiters, and it leads to further centralization risk on the Ethereum network. So what really SSV does, it allows for the distributed management and operation of the Ethereum validator. So the way that I like to think about it and describe it, it is effectively a network that aggregates operators and allows you to split your validator key into multiple pieces and spread it amongst operators. And as long as a certain threshold isn't met, then even if a portion of the operators that your small validator key share is spread between goes down because of DevOps issues, server issues, etc., you would not incur a slashing event. So theoretically, this is going to dramatically reduce the slashing risk that is incurred by depositors of ETH on the network. And so this is just briefly kind of breaking that concept that I just described into a diagram form. As you can see, the validator key is split into secure shares. It's spread across these SSV nodes, which can be run by various operators. And that allows you to get that sort of distributed risk management process natively built into the protocol. A lot of these staking operators today, they can't engage with things like insurance funds. They deem it as too risky, or they have trouble finding anyone to insure it. This is not insurance per se, but it does act as a way to reduce that downside risk that occurs from slashing as a staker. So overall, it really redefines what Ethereum staking is all about. It decentralizes staking infrastructure. It uses, brand new technology. Threshold signatures isn't brand new, but it uses specifically the ssv/DVT technology, which is very incredibly innovative and uses some tried and true other technologies in pair with it in order to create security and fault tolerance. And it really is a decentralized infrastructure layer for Ethereum staking. These are some of the benefits that you achieve. I've gone over it in high level already, but if you wanted to read through this, it creates no single point of failure. It allows there to be easy to use infrastructure for operators, and it allows validator private keys to be stored in cold storage. And so far, SSV Network is the first and only implementation of SSV/DVT technology, which has been in development for the past 3 years. SSV received initially an Ethereum grant, and now it is also venture funded in order to develop this technology. And it is really built for new and existing staking services to build on top of SSV. So once again, this is an infrastructure layer. SSV is not an operator themselves. It is really for novel applications to be built that allows you the sort of decentralized, or let's call it distributed access of security across multiple operators. So there's a lot of benefits for operators. They can run SSV nodes. They get exposed to a much larger community and user base. Their operational risk and costs are lower. And then early adopters obviously will enjoy a higher market share before the rest of the crowd kind of jumps in. The DAO can manage curated list of verified operators. You can access, we're obviously run by a DAO. There's protocol network governance. And there are various grants for development on the network. And then the SSV token, where this comes in, and it is a currently public token that you can access via Uniswap and other exchanges today. Effectively, you have to pay the operators who are working on SSV a small SSV fee. The network takes a portion of that fee. The operators take a portion of that fee. And you, as a staker, need to effectively have this pile of SSV that slowly reduces over time as you continue to use the network. So our testnet is live. I encourage anyone who hasn't to test it out. We've had great success, over 361,000 Gorilla ETH have already been staked. There's already been 3,000 operators on that testnet. We've had many partners work with us on the testnet and the continued development of the ecosystem. So here's a list of some of the developer grants, and I'm going to go into some further ideas on a slightly different slide that will go into effectively the crux of what I wanted to talk about, which is our grant program and specifically the various ideas that you can come up with in order to build on top of SSV. So there's a lot of ideas that have already been tested by the market that can be applied to the SSV network, and then there are new ideas that have still yet to be tried within the Ethereum ecosystem that I think make a lot of sense on SSV network to use as effectively the decentralized backend infrastructure for them. So obviously Lido's here, they really popularized the liquid staking token model. A similar model could very well be applied to the SSV network. Using, instead of effectively splitting up 32 lots of ETH into various operators and socializing the losses of the slashing events across all the staked ETH, on SSV you should actually incur less slashing because of effectively the splitting of the validator key across multiple operators, reducing your risk that way, and ensuring that only, if 1/3 goes down, you don't incur that slashing event. So overall, a liquid staking product on SSV using that infrastructure should actually lead to users earning more ST ETH over time, or whatever you want to call the derivative product, because they should incur less slashing risk, or less slashing downside risk. Another big idea that I find really interesting is, so let's take Polygon for example. which has billions in TVL. There are many other layer 2s, or sidechains, whatever you want to classify them as, out there. And a lot of those sidechains, layer 2s, require you to bridge your assets over into them in order to access. And those bridged assets on the Ethereum side today are actually locked, which is, I can't find the exact numbers, but I would imagine that at least $1 billion worth of Polygon's TVL is Ether that's just locked and sitting there on the Ethereum network. So in my opinion, why couldn't you just take that Ether that's locked, do something with it to earn very low risk sustainable yields, such as staking via SSV, effectively creating a solution for bridges to allow the ETH that is locked on them to be staked via SSV. That has not been introduced in the market yet, and that allows users to actually access a new form of yield in previously underutilized pools of ETH. Another feature that we think is going to be crucial is actually building a plug-and-play feature that any DeFi app can easily integrate with that enables staking in the front end. And there's a very distinct market reason for this. Right now, lending Ether on Compound or Aave, you're earning 20 basis points, which is 0.2% APY on lending of that Ether. Obviously, if you can access the APY that staking offers, I think it's today around 4.5%. I could be a little bit off there. But you will effectively achieve orders of magnitude larger yield for their users. And in an ideal world, I know SushiSwap and many others have talked about building staking features. If you were able to build a staking feature on top of SSV that is easily plug and playable into the front end of various DeFi applications, that would allow their users to access this staking yield in an incredibly accessible manner. One of the ones that I'm very passionate about is staking treasury management solution for DAOs. DAOs currently manage a ton of ETH, or they have a lot in their native token and they need to diversify across ETH. There's many treasury service management providers out there today, like CoinShift or Parcel, and those treasury service management providers or a new treasury management service provider specifically specializing in ETH staking can be created to help those DAOs effectively stake on the network. Number one, that allows those DAOs, which are predominantly built on Ethereum, to prove that they believe in the long-term sustainability and security of Ethereum. I personally believe, even as a community signal, that it's very necessary for them to show their support of the chain that effectively made their application possible. It additionally allows them to access new forms of yield that they really should be thinking about, considering, across all DAOs, I believe it's around 2 to 3 billion of assets they manage within those treasuries. Another aspect of SSV that's very interesting is that the network itself, at least in our initial UI, and I believe that others will also work on building it, can easily see various metrics on operators and compare and contrast those operators on metrics such as uptime, maybe on metrics in the future such as number slashing events that they have incurred, on things like the fees that the operators charge for the user. And so building out robust metrics to really examine and allow any staker or any institution that controls a large pool of ETH better insight into how they select the operators is incredibly useful for educating the market and allowing you to get much deeper insight into effectively what are the best options for for an individual, for institutions, for whatever use case you're really looking for, or for whatever operator you're really looking to partner with. We're obviously always looking for innovative tokenomics models. Tokenomics is a constantly changing field. As you could see with, we started with how you can lock up tokens on XSushi and then earn a percentage of revenue that way, and then that's how it allows you to participate in governance, with the curve models and convex models today. So there's plenty of innovation going on in tokenomics, and we're always open to exploring new ideas to create value for the SSV ecosystem participants. And then I'm also very interested in seeing if there's any sort of rev share model that can be created for large suppliers of Ethereum to the network and operators themselves. And the way that I like to think about this is, yes, you as a staker, as an individual staker, are going to stake with an operator, and you are going to pay that fee that they list. But that is like a one lot of ETH stake going to the operator. There are a lot of different, let's call them institutions or DAO service, treasury management service providers that control large pools of ETH. And if they are bringing those large pools of ETH to the network and are trying to decide which operators they are driving that ETH to, theoretically operators should actually be competing on fees for the lowest amount of fees, considering they're getting that large amount of flow to from those specific large pools of ETH, or they should actually include those large pools of ETH in the revenue share that's generated from the APY on the large pools of ETH they're providing to those operators. So this is just going into some of these ideas that I discussed at a high level in more detail. Once again, the reason why I'm throwing out these ideas, I've been to many hackathons, I've been to many events. I think it's great to get into the depth of the technology and make sure people really understand it. But one of the things that I think is super important is, you know, a lot of us here are looking for applications to build. Maybe we're existing operators on SSV or other networks, and we're looking to expand our business into a new field, such as building a staking specific application. And so I think it's really important to kind of explore the untested waters or the tested waters that precedents have already been set of what can actually be built using this new infrastructure. This one, I'm not going to lie, this one is my favorite idea that on this list, just because there are such large pools of ETH locked on these bridges that are currently being underutilized. And once again, if you created this EVM, if you created this solution, theoretically it could be easily plugged into any EVM compatible bridge. So, you know, Binance, Polygon, Avalanche, many others. You know, I was talking with Boba Network last night about this idea. I've spoken to Polygon and many others about it. It is, if you created this solution for bridges specifically, there are many different bridges across the layer 2 / sidechain ecosystem that could really utilize this sort of solution. Yep, this is just going over the exact same idea I mentioned earlier. DeFi apps offering more yield to their users than the current yield that's available through things like lending today. And I fundamentally believe, I've talked with many of the DAO service providers about this idea, and I think DAOs do want to show their long-term support of the Ethereum ecosystem, and there can be a very large campaign in order to show that community signal. But there needs to be a leader that really comes in the space and really starts building the solution that makes it as easy as possible for them to stake their treasuries. Even the current DAO service treasury providers are still about 3 to 6 months away from their asset management solutions. And then a part of their asset management solutions, and not the first part, are going to be focused on effectively Ethereum staking. So there is a good amount of time in the market today to develop something that is specifically focused on helping DAOs get their treasuries of ETH into the Ethereum ecosystem, specifically through staking, that hasn't yet been developed. Innovative tokenomics is self-explanatory. And I'm very interested to see a marketplace be created for the operators and stakers. I do believe that is what will end up actually happening and functioning in this market. Obviously, running your own validator, retail staking will always be a crucial aspect of the market. But as Ethereum staking becomes more mainstream, I envision that it will be various service providers, whether you want to look at them as institutions or DAOs themselves, or treasury service management providers, that really end up coming in control of large portions of ETH. And the more insight they have into where they route that ETH based on uptime, security risk, who else is using it, and fees, the better insight they have into that decision-making process. So I encourage everyone here to visit ssv.network in order to check out, play around with the tech. And I really appreciate you listening. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Do we have any question from the audience? Anyone? There you go.
I have a question about the diversity of the client software in the SSV network. I mean, you've been mentioning that there is a problem with kind of diversity on the layer 1 currently in terms of client software. So where, like, as I understand it, if I understand it correctly, SSV does also use some clients to run this BFT consensus protocol, right? So it will, how can you comment on that?
Yeah, so there is client diversity though on SSV as well. You could in the future select multiple different clients, and we believe that on SSV you can have, users will actually spread across more clients than just the existing common one that they're going through today, which is Prism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there will be like different languages that this SSV client software will be developed, right?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
I mean, there will be different technologies and languages which will be used to develop this SSV clients as well.
So actually, you know, Alon's sitting in the audience right now. Alon, would you mind answering that question?
Yeah. Let me come to you.
We don't have any plans right now, but I think that once we... Oh, sorry. Be careful. Once we move along a bit further into the future, I think dedicating grants for additional implementation is important. It's important also to notice that we're working both internally but also with the Ethereum Foundation on public specs for SSV. And so you'll have a set of spec tests that you can then carry on between implementations. I think until that happens, you can't really go and implement another version of the same technology. But yeah, potentially I think it's definitely something we'll be interested in, and not us potentially developing it, but giving implementation teams outside of the core team to develop. Yeah.
Do we have any other question? I don't see anything. Please give it up for Mattison Asher. All right. I don't know if you've seen our new schedule. The next talk is going to start at 10:15, so in about a few minutes. You're free to hang around or check out the other rooms with the booth or whatever you guys want. So we'll start in a few minutes.